Hello everyone, welcome to Z&Z Classroom. I'm Mary, and in this video, I will be going over some of the important functions in the TINspire calculators that could really help with your standardized testing as well as some of your math courses. So let's get started. Let's start with some of the basic settings that you could do. So in order to do your settings in your calculator, you do 5, 2. So you click the button 5 and click the button 2, which 5 then indicates document and 2 indicates document settings. So in document settings, you can actually change some of your settings in your calculator. So the first very important ones is the display digits. So if you would like your answer to be displayed in multiple decimals, you should change your display digits. So default, I think it's float 6, which it would display 6 digits. So some people may want float 9, they want more digits. Sometimes it's not really necessary for standardized testing, but for some of your higher advanced math courses, it might be needed for you to change your float decimal, how many digits displaying. And the second one, it's very, very important that a lot of people lose points because they forgot to change the setting. So the setting is degrees and radians. When you are doing trigonometry, it's very important you know whether your calculator is in a degree mode or in a radian mode. So you need to change it here according to your questions. For example, if the question tells you like pi over 6 radians, then you should change the setting to radians. If it tells you 207 degrees, then you should change it to degrees, unless you want to convert yourself to to just fit the calculator setting. But usually you just want to change the calculator setting to fit your question, which will be less mistakes made. Okay, and then the next line, I believe a lot of people know, is called Home to Menu C, and you click OK and OK. That will clear all your calculator and it will set everything back to default. So it will set degree back to radian, it will set float back to 6, for example. So, and it will clear your calculations, right? And then the last one is when you are in Scratchpad or if you're in the calculator part of it, that you want to just get some answers such as 5 divided by 3 or like 9 divided by 6. Sometimes if it's some of the weird numbers, they will give you an exact answer in fraction form. So sometimes that will be useful, but sometimes you want the decimal form. If you want the decimal form, I suggest you either after you enter the expression, use Control plus Enter. So click Control Enter, you will get a decimal answer. Or after you get you get the exact answer, you can multiply that answer by 1.0. It's going to give you a decimal answer. So these are some of the basics that you should know to know about the TINspire calculators. And the next thing is very important and very useful is solving one variable equations. So for example, if I only have one variable like x, I could use this function. This function is, you could either do it in Scratchpad or you could do in the calculation thing, which is you click 1, 1, it's gonna create a new page of the calculations. So you're gonna clear the calculation you did before and create a new page for it, and you can do your new calculations. Or you could just use it in Scratchpad, which is A in here. And then you click menu 3.1. So menu 3.1, it gives you 3 is algebra, which is pretty intuitive, and 1 is called numerical solve. So that's one variable equations. And what you do is you enter your equation with, for example, 5 plus x equals 6. And you notice your variable here is x, so you do comma x. Here are some other examples. If I do y times 2 equals 4, right? I would do comma y to get the answer. So you do comma variable, right? So that will give you the answer. All right, and the next one, this one is very, very important because a lot of people struggle with solving linear equations. And you should know that actually your calculator can solve it for you. Of course, it's very important that you know how to solve it, but an easy way of doing it in the calculator could also help you during exams. So in first, if you have a CAS calculator, you will do menu 372 for a linear systems linear equations. So that's gonna help you with linear equations. systems and linear equations. Or you could do menu 371. That's going to solve all the other types of systems equations. So usually you don't really need this one. You just need this one, which if you have a non-CAS calculator, you could just do the linear equations. So it's menu 32. So all those labels right now is just numbers. You may think it's very hard to remember them. The labels are actually very intuitive. It's going to say 3, it's going to be algebra. And 7 is going to be, for example, like solve or things like that. And then 2 or 1 is going to label it as system and linear equations, system equations. So it's very, very intuitive. I'm just putting numbers just for simplicity. But when you're using it, it's actually pretty intuitive. You just need to know that those functions exist. Okay. And once you click those, it's going to give you this page, which is going to ask you the number equations and your variables. So usually the default of 2 and x and y will work. So for example, if your question gives you variables in A or B, you can either change it here, or I would suggest you just leave it there and just match the A to X and B to Y, for instance, right? And then it's the same thing. And this one is actually better that they will actually give you the braces stuff. The only thing you need to enter is your equation. So for example, I entered x plus y equals 6 and x minus y equals 1, and it's gonna give me answer. So the first number in here is x and the second number is y. Okay, so now let's go to graphing. In graphing, what you do is you create a new kind of blank graph with not really even graph, but a new coordinate, right? You do 1 and 2. So 1 is basically where all your documents located. So different types of document like lists, graphs, or even that calculator function, and anything is in there. And then 2 specifically is for graph tag. So the ones before where this 1 will give you the calculator, or I'm not too sure about what it's called, but it's something that's similar to Scratchpad. You just do those calculation stuff, right? So those are the graphing. For graphing, there's one important function you could use, or you probably won't use, but I just want to let you know that when your cursor is over here and you do a delete, it's going to let you choose whether it's less than or equal to, less than, equal to, greater than or equal to, and relation. So relation is basically you can enter when y is not isolated to one side. So that's sometimes useful. And the greater than or equal to or less than you could use when you have inequalities. And then you just enter your function and graph it. So you do you enter it and then you click enter to have the function graphed. And then after you graph the function, you probably need to do some analysis to it, right? You want maybe know the x-intercept. So for x-intercept, you could do menu 6, 1. So 6 is the analyzed graph and 1 is 0. So 0 is basically your x-intercept. So after you click those, you will have something to drag. So you will have this shaded area to drag. If you drag this shaded area starting, so you click it over here, starting with the left side, and you drag it and click it to the right side. When you cover the area, this area where it contains a 0, the coordinate of this 0 or this x-intercept will just show, right? And if you wanted to do another 0, for instance, it's not really linear. It's something like quadratic that has 2 zeros, for instance. You could exit this function. So you do ESC, and you can repeat this menu 6, 1 again. Or sometimes you just drag the thing longer, include both zeros, I think it's going to show, okay? And then if you want to graph a new graph on this same page, you should do tab and you will graph a new function. So you could see, for example, the intersection of two graphs. Or you could do, if you want a new tab, so you won't have this graph, you will still have the graph, but you will open new page, for example, and then you will do Control plus Doc. So you just want to start something new, but you still want to keep this, right? So those are some functions here. And let's move on to statistics. So a lot of people struggles with standard deviation and mean and things like that. So there's actually easy way for you to get those numbers on a calculator. So what you do is 1, 4. So here's a page I said about a doc. Okay, it is called calculator, but okay, in here, we don't use this. The calculator is like the scratchpad thing. The graphs we are talking about, we don't need geometry. And what we are doing here is add lists and spreadsheet. So we do 1, 4. So 1 will open up this, and you click 4, will give you this thing. So what you do is this is you will label it X. So you will label a column on the very top where it says A, B, C, D. You will label it, for example, X, height, weight, or whatever you want. And you will enter your number, start with a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I entered it 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, or you could have like 23, 26, whatever your data is, right? So you name the column, you enter the data, and you do menu 411. That's going to give you some statistics. So one variable statistics, that's mostly what you're going to do for standard test testing. Sometimes maybe you want to use a linear regression, but I'm not going to talk about that here because these are actually pretty intuitive and you should just explore them yourself, which should be pretty easy to do. So let me just introduce one variable statistics. The one variable statistics, it will first ask you about the number list you have. Usually, if you are just calculating standard deviation of one data set, it's going to be one list, right? And then the X1 list is basically the list you entered, and I labeled it as X. So in the dropdown, I will select X, right? And then I'll click OK. So this C basically means the results of the calculated statistics is going to be showing in the C column and afterwards. So it shows here at the C column and the D column. And then now let's read the statistics. So for the X bar here, it represents the mean of your data. So it's the mean of your data. And then you don't need to know the sigmas. And then the SX is your standard deviation. So this is very important. A lot of people struggles with standard deviation, but it's actually can just show in a calculator with one step, right? Of course, it's very important for you, or not very important, but if you know how to calculate how to calculate standard deviations, that would be very helpful, or all the other different types of statistical values or things like that. So SX is your standard deviation. Don't care about the other values. Unless you're curious, you can search them up yourself. All right. And then I think that's all I have, and just some important things that sometimes when I use my calculator that I will encounter and doing it wrong. The first thing is very important, parentheses. So parentheses is very, very important. A lot of people forget parentheses or add too much parentheses, or they will mess up your orders of operation. So be careful with your parentheses. And then the second one is default setting. So I talked about before, a lot of people mess up because they did not put a setting to degrees, or they did not put a setting to radians. So be careful. After you clear a calculator, it's going to be default, which most likely is going to be go back to radians. So if you would like to use your calculator in degrees, you need to change your default setting, right? After before you use it. And then the third thing is something weird that I found that maybe not occurred to you, but sometimes after I enter the expression and I got an exact answer, and then I would like to have a decimal answer. So I just use Control Enter, right? Sometimes it does give me the correct decimal answer, but sometimes it divided by what I had divided by before again, and then give me the new answer, which I'm not too sure about why. Maybe it's because I clicked something else. Maybe somebody can tell me in the comments, but that's something I encountered. So I would suggest you just right after you enter the expression, do Control Enter, not after you get an exact answer. Or after you get the exact answer, you could do the multiply by 1.0 thing, which also works. So these are some of my just some things that I encounter and you should be careful of. And thank you so much for watching. And if you have any questions, just comment. And if you want to know more about the calculator or some of the specific functions, also just comment and let me know. So maybe I will make a new video about some other functions. And thank you so much for watching, and see you next time.